Hey guys, it's Alissa from Alissa Beth Photography. I'm here today in my home studio and I'm going to show you guys how to create an inside the box photo portrait composite. We're going to start out by introducing you to the box, and then I'm going to show you my lighting setup, my camera setup, and all my camera settings. Then I'm going to show you the actual photo shoot. Once the photo shoot is complete, I'm going to show you how I upload the photos into Lightroom, take the photos from Lightroom into Photoshop, and then show you how I will edit the composite. Okay, next I want to show you my lighting setup. So what I have here is one Studio Pro SD400 sitting facing the box with one 48-inch octabox. I'm not using any kind of fill light. I have enough ambient light in my room and in my space. Sometimes some people do set up reflectors, or they might use a fill light to help reduce the shadows that are inside the box. Okay, next I want to show you the box. So I have my lovely model, Rebecca. She's all ready to go for our photo shoot. The box itself is painted white. It's 4 feet by 4 feet by 2 feet. It's 2 feet deep, 4 feet wide, 4 feet high. It's sitting on a base, and you can see at the bottom of the base, I also have some white foam core board placed there, so that way when we do some Photoshop magic, it will be much easier to cut out any limbs that are hanging down. Next, I'm going to show you my camera. My camera is set up sitting on a Suray tripod. The tripod is essential for these kinds of photo shoots because you do not want to move your camera around. Once you have your settings locked in, you want to be able to just take the pictures and not have to touch your camera again. The camera is set up so that it is level to the box itself. I don't know if you can see it, but it's going to be level to the box and centered right into the box. My settings right now are set up at an f-stop of f8, so I can have a nice large amount of depth of field, and my shutter speed is at 1/200th of a second.
I feel so weird. I never know how to do this. Like,
ready?
Where should I put this hand?
No, just hold the heart. Good.
Is that weird?
Nope, good.
Okay.
Cute. Okay, now I want you to lean down like you're going to be handing the heart.
Okay.
All right. So, I'm going to hand the heart.
Just like here?
Yeah, so I want you to look like, yes, perfect. Use both hands.
Okay.
And like as if you're like going to be looking at him, because now he's going to be in the box and he's going to be reaching up. So I want to remember now the heart is right here. Let me just get a pencil.
Do you want me to like hang it? Because it has a little thing.
Oh yeah, that's good. You can hang it. Perfect.
Like
So
dangle it.
if it's right about there, Matt, when you're going to look up later, you're going to look up right about here. Okay? You're going to be like reaching up for it. All right, you ready? So I want you to be looking down at her, at him. That's cute, adorable, good. And you can almost like wave a little bit if you want to. Cute, good, good, good. Adorable, perfect. Okay, all right. So Matt, why don't you go into the picture with her? I want you guys to go back to back, okay?
Whoa.
It's
like
okay.
shaking a little.
We got everybody in this.
Yeah, how did all 4 of you fit in here?
All 4 of you fit in one box?
No, just,
Oh.
no. Okay, bring your legs up. I don't want anyone's legs touching the ground.
Okay.
So, but you can have them overlapping. You definitely have to have them overlapping. So that's cute.
Is that okay?
Yep, that's perfect.
Do you want to spool it? Oh my god, that's so cute.
There we go. Little hook in the box. There we go. Okay, you ready? Matt, you know what? Can you guys go like arm in arm? Is that like
what do you mean?
possible?
Like-
Yeah, like that. That's cute. That's cute.
Go this way.
Okay, cute. Ready?
Are we supposed to be? We're looking at you.
Yes.
Okay.
No. Okay, adorable. And Matt, I want you to turn your head and try to look at Becca. Cute. And smile at her. Cute. Becca, fix your hair so it goes the other side.
Okay.
Okay.
This side.
Yep.
Like all of it?
Yep. Oh, it's the other side. Good. Perfect. Okay. And Matt, just scoot to the right a tiny bit more. Good. So we have a nice.
Do you want me to move back?
What? Yeah, you can move back more like this. Like, good. There we go. Nice. Okay, ready? And do the arm in arm thing again. Good. Now do that laugh and like, you know. There we go. So good at that. Now Becca, look at him. Cute. Now look at her.
At the same time.
Okay, now look at each other at the same time. Cute, cute, cute. Okay, good.
Okay.
Inside the box photo shoot and editing tutorial. Before we get started on showing you how to import your photos from Lightroom to Photoshop, I just wanted to make you aware of some links in the comments. One of the links is a link to our amazing Facebook group, Inside the Box Creative Photography and Portraits. There you will find a lot of support. You'll also get a 9-box Photoshop template freebie. Also in the comments, you'll find some links for other videos that I've created to help support you in this process of compositing. Okay, so let's get started. Take a look. This is the photo shoot that you just saw, the little Valentine's Day shoot. And these are all the photos. So I've already decided on which photos I'm going to use for my 4-box composite. I color coded them into purple. And what I'm going to do is I want to only be able to see the photos that I want to bring into Photoshop. So I will go down to the bottom, and if you can see on my screen to the right, to the far right, I have a little area here for filters. I'm going to click just the purple photos, the purple box, because that will show me just the photos that I have filtered with the purple code. So these are the 4 photos I'm going to import and use in my template. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Edit, Select All. Now all the photos are selected of the photograph. I'm going to scroll down to where it says Edit In, and then I could go to Edit in Adobe Photoshop CC in their own Photoshop layers, in their own Photoshop file, but I want to bring them all in together as layers in one Photoshop file. So I'm going to scroll down to where it says Open as Layers in Photoshop, click that, and then that will bring all of the photos into Photoshop. It just takes a couple of seconds, but you can see it's working. While it starts, I just wanted to also say that before I bring anything into Photoshop, I've done all my raw and basic edits in Lightroom. But I didn't crop anything. I'm going to crop it here, and that is the process that I will show you in the next part of the video. So as you can see, all the photos are now being imported into Photoshop into one file. Takes a couple of seconds, and now they're all in one file. I'll show you what I typically do with the photos before I move them into the Photoshop template. This is the template that I'm going to be using. It is, nope, not that one. It is here. It's a 4-box template. Before I actually even move anything into Photoshop, what I highly, highly suggest is that you go into File, Save As, and rename your template to whatever it is that you want to call it. So I'm going to call this the Valentine's Day shoot, and I'm going to save it. So that way I will not mess up the template in its purest form, and I'll be able to go back and use the template again. So now I'm going to go back to the pictures. So if you look here, I have all the pictures stacked up on the right hand side. I have, if I'm going to shut off each picture so that you can see what's underneath each layer, I do that by clicking the little eye to the left of the photo. So I've shut off the top layer, I'm shutting that one off, I'm shutting that one off, I'm shutting that one off, and now they're all gone. So my process, which is different for everybody, is I'm going to start with the top layer. I'm going to grab the Marquee tool, the rectangle Marquee, which is located on the left panel, for me at least. I'm going to click on that, my rectangle Marquee tool, and I'm going to just select the box, and I'm going to bring it up a bit, and select as much of the box. Sometimes I overlap. I get a little bit of overlap because you can see my box is not really perfectly straight, but I'll take care of that later on. So now I have my box selected, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit on a Mac, which is what I'm on right now, Command J, but if you're on a PC, it will be Control J, Command J, and what that did was I've now created a copy in its own layer. So if you look to the right, you'll now see this is just a copy of just the area that I selected. If I shut that portion down, and then I shut down all the rest of the pictures, and then only open up my copy, you'll see that this is what I'm left with, just a copy of the selection. So now that I have copied what I needed from this photograph, I don't need it anymore, so I'm actually just going to dump it in the garbage. I'm going to shut down the first layer, open up the second layer, and I'm going to do the same process again, where I'm just going to use my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to select, and oh, I didn't really get enough of the box in here, so I'm going to go backwards, and I might, because it's a little bit on an angle, which I really will fix in a little while, I'm going to select a little bit more than and I'm going to make sure now I have my marching ants, okay, and they're selected. But if you take a look, and this happens to me a lot, and I forget, if you take a look what I actually have highlighted. So if I were to do Command J, I wouldn't be copying the layer that I want to be copying from. So I have to make sure that I am now highlighting the correct layer, and now I am. I'm going to press Command J, and then I'm going to take the photo that I just copied, and I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to close up that one. I'm going to open up the next one and go through the same process. Again, this is going to be an easy one to edit because this one I have no limbs hanging over, which is nice. And I'm highlighted in the right spot, so I'm going to go Command J. I'm going to delete. I'm going to close and open up the bottom photo last time. And I'm going to give it a little bit of hangover because I want her dress to be hanging over in the picture. Command J. Okay. And delete. So now I have all 4 photos in their own layers. So this is what I do. I will now press the Shift button and I will click to highlight all 4 of the layers at the same time. And then I'm going to take all the layers and move them into a folder. I'm then going to duplicate this folder. Okay, so now I have a copy of the folder. I'm going to open up the copy, whichever folder, doesn't really matter, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to the folder are highlighted. Then I'm going to go to my Move tool. I can either go to the left panel and click on my Move tool, or I can on my keyboard, and that will give me the Move tool. I'm going to press the Shift and hold Shift down while I press and drag on the photos, and I'm going to bring those photos into the template that I'm working in. Once the photos come in, I'll let go, and they're all there. So if you look on the right-hand side of the Layers panel, now you're going to see Group 1 Copy, and it's here, and it's inside our template. Okay, so when taking a look at the template, you'll see that I actually have 2, in this particular template, I actually have a thick border and I have a thinner border. And I don't need this layer. I'm not really sure why it's there. But I have a thick border and a thin border. So I want to decide beforehand which border I'm going to use. So I think for this one, I'm going to use the, whoops, I think I deleted out my border. Okay, I'm just going to take a step back.
and I'm going to open just the thin border. Okay, and now I'm going to open up that group. Don't really need those pictures to be in a folder anymore, but you can see that the folder is now inside the first row folder. I've created some extra folders for everyone in my one labeled second row photos, so when you start to move around your pictures inside your grid, you might want to place them into their own separate folder, so that for this 4-box template, it's not as necessary. But when you start working with templates that have like 15 boxes, you might find that to be kind of useful. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to highlight all the photos that I just imported the same way I did before, have them all highlighted so that I can use some of the transformation tools. I'm going to size the photos all at the same time. So right now I'm still on my move tool, okay? And I have up on the top bar, I have it says show transformation controls. I have that selected with a check mark. So when I am choosing a photo, it will automatically, if I just move my mouse to the right side or outside of the box of the photo, it'll give me the transformation tools. Of course, you could also use Command T to get your transformation tool. So I'm going to just ever so slightly straighten out all the pictures, and because they're all highlighted together, I'm moving them all at the same time. I'm going to also take them, grab them, and sort of put them initially inside one of the boxes, and just to size it approximately to how I may size it going forward. Okay, when I'm done, I think that looks pretty good for now. There are going to be plenty of adjustments later on. Click the check mark at the top and everything is transformed. Now I just want to move one picture at a time. So I'm going to go back to my pictures in my layers panel, and I'm actually just going to let them. And I'm going to click on the first picture. Oops. And I'm going to move it, and I'm going to start moving the pictures around to where I might want them to be. All right, so I'm thinking about my composition right now, and I'm thinking I'm going to want, and for some reason it's not working, but usually when I click on the pictures, I'm able to, it'll automatically select it for me, so it's not working at the moment, so I'm just going to have to manually go into each picture, click on it, and then move it. So I decided, I think what I want to have is, let's see, I want her to be looking, this is Becca, that you saw from the video, and actually I'm going to name that layer right now, BCC looking. Sometimes I like to rename my layers so I remember, and then I have matte, and then I have, you can see, I have matte is peaking, and then I have one more layer with Becca with the heart, and I think I'm going to move Becca, I'm going to move matte over here, and then I'm going to have matte peeking from this box. Actually, no. What I would like to do is have matte peeking from this box. But of course, now he's not do edit, transform. I'm going to click flip horizontal. And now matte is looking horizontally. And Becca with the heart, I'm going to, move her into a box. So right now I have them all pretty much where I want them to be. There's going to be a lot more adjusting using the warp tool and using the free transform tool. Let me just fix Matt a little bit because his whole photo, Matt's whole photo is not, oh, I misnamed them. Okay, so this is Matt. And this is Becca Hart. All right. Let me show you also. So now that I know I have Becca is peeking or looking, she's in the first row, and Matt is also in the first row, but Matt peeking is in the second row, so I'm actually going to move that photo into my second row folder. And Becca holding the heart is also in my second row, so I'm going to move it into the second row. That way you can see if I feel like shutting those off for some reason at the same time, I can do that while Matt and Becca looking are in the first row photos. Okay, so now I want to take Matt and move him just slightly so that he's fully inside my box. You can see that now I have some limbs that are being covered by the grid. So we have this grid layer, which is right there. And let's see. And back up to resize a little bit. And so I'm going to start with Becca with the heart on the left side. I'm going to take the combination tool and I'm going to hit the shift. I'm going to hold down the shift button and I'm going to slightly make it a little bit longer. I'm holding down the shift button so that I do not lose the size of the box. I don't lose the shape. If I do not hold down the shift button, then the shape will not stay a square and it can become a rectangle and warp your photo a bit. Okay, so I'm not going to edit the entire photo, but I do like the composition now. So I want to show you how I'll handle some of the overlaps. So let's start out with Matt peeking. Okay, so, almost forgot to click the check mark because I like the transformation. So I'm going to go to Matt who's peeking over the second box on the bottom. I want to remove the border for a minute. I'm going to just shut off the border. You can see that his hand, I'd like his hand to be overlapping and coming over the border. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a white layer mask on Matt, on that photo. Now, I'm going to click back on the photo, not the layer mask, but the actual photo. I'm going to use my quick selection tool. With my quick selection tool, I want to zoom in a little bit. With my quick selection tool, I'm going to select Matt's hand. It's all because I have a nice amount of contrast between his skin tones and the white board that I had on my box. Hand selected. I'm going to click back on the white mask, and then I'm going to use my brush tool. Either I can click on my brush tool on the left panel, or I can just press the letter B. And I want to make sure that I have black selected. And I also am using a soft brush. But you could actually, at this point, use a hard brush. And I'm going to go to my selection, and I'm going to inverse the selection. Because right now, if I were to just use the selection as it is, I will end up wiping, I would end up, yep, that was right, I would end up erasing Matt's hands, because when you select something, you are then only working inside that selection, and you see nothing on the outside of Matt's hand is being erased. But that's not what I want. Now I want Matt to have a hand. So I'm just going to go backwards, bring his hand back. I'm going to go up to select, and I'm going to say inverse. That will inverse the selection. So my marching ants are now around his hand and not, it's now actually around the entire photo, and the only thing that is not selected at this point is Matt's hand. So using my black brush, I'm going to brush off everything around Matt's hand. Oops, but I don't want to brush off too much. Okay. And you can see I've pretty much taken away everything. Okay, sorry about that. My video cut out before. So let's pick up where we were before. So we just wiped off the bottom of the picture of Matt peeking. And you can see now that I have, I'm going to put the thin border back on. And you can see that Matt's hand is still not showing, even though we just wiped off the photo. That's because we only masked out the photo of Matt himself. We did not mask the border yet. But I did want to show you how to mask out a limb from an actual photo, because sometimes you're going to have limbs or objects that are going to hang down from one photo to another, and you're going to want to be able to mask out the actual photo itself. If you look at one of my other videos, I think I showed that. What I'm going to do now is I really don't love, let's see here, I'm going to put my border back on. I can still see that I have a little bit of the blue showing now into my picture. So I'm going to hide the border. I'm going to go back into my mask, Matt's mask, okay? And I'm going to press the letter X to reverse the color on my brush. Make sure I'm still on my brush tool. And I'm going to bring some of the mask back, because I really didn't need to wipe out any of the photo where of the box itself. So I'm going to bring that back in so that my box is back. And I'm going to press Command D to deselect the marching ants. And I'm going to put my border back on and see, I'm not really that happy with the way the box is fitting inside the border. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm selecting the picture of Matt, not his mask anymore. I'm going to press the Move tool, which gives me my automatic transformation tool. And I'm going to start by just readjusting the photo, maybe straightening it out a little bit. Press down and hold the Shift key and make it a little bit bigger. And I'm also going to press and hold the Option button to use the Warp tool. This, when you press down the Option button, or I think it's the Control button on a PC, you'll see that the arrow, the cursor turns into a little arrow, and you can grab one of the edges and just ever so slightly warp the photo a tiny, tiny bit. You don't want to overuse. Now press OK, and I'm going to show you how to now reveal the hand over the border. I'm going to close the border for a moment again, and I'm going to press my quick selection brush one more time, and make it a little bit smaller. I'm going, oh nope, see, that's a mistake, because what I'm doing now is using my brush tool. So I'm just going to take a step backwards and click my quick selection brush. This is what happens in editing all the time, and I'm going to quickly select Matthew's hands again. All right, so I can see that it's selected pretty good, but I think I'd like to refine it a little bit. So if you look up on the top here, you have all your tools. You have the plus sign, the minus sign. I want to press the minus sign so I can bring my selection in just a tiny bit. Okay, the plus sign will add to a selection, the minus sign will take away from a selection. So I'm just refining out my selection just a little tiny bit. I think it looks pretty good. I'll know better after I mask out the photo. I'm going to put my, what I should have done was I need to put a mask on my border. So I'm going to click back I'm going to press Select, Deselect. Should have done this first. I'm going to give my border a white mask. Then I'm going to go back to Select, Reselect. And what that did, I'm going to take a brush. I push the letter B to get myself a brush. I'm going to push X to give myself a black brush. And I'm going to push off the mask. Now you can see, I mean not the mask, the brush off the grid, the border. You can see now, oh, I did not give myself enough of a selection. So if I go and try to brush off this part of his hand, well, it's not in the selection, so it's not going to work. So I'm going to press select, inverse. I've now inversed my selection, and I should be able to get his hand going. All right, so now I have Matthew's hand back in my picture. I can also press Command D, deselect, and I can do this whole process really without any form of selection whatsoever. The selection just helps you to keep your brush strokes within a certain parameter. Now, so this will take me a few more minutes because I really, right now, the selection is really a little bit messy. I would go back and forth with my brush tool. I press the letter X, so I have white showing, and I would cover up a little bit and try to refine my selection a little bit more. I mean, not my selection, refine the cutout a little bit more, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm not going to go for perfection right now. That's pretty good. The other thing I would also do is right now it looks like he's not grounded. He's not grounded on this this template. So I would give him a shadow. This is not the way I would end it, but I just wanted to give you, to show you. Right now it's a little bit messy. And his fingers are also bent in. So he really, really needs a shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click at the top and create a new layer by clicking this button. I'm going to go into Edit, Fill. I'm going to fill it with 50% gray. Oh, and it covers my whole thing up. Go into here and change the blending mode to overlay. And what this is going to become is my shadow layer. Now I will use my burn tool over here on the left side. Oops. I want to use my burn tool. And I'm going to start out at a pretty low exposure, maybe at like 10%. And I'm going to just start to burn, darken. It's a little, not really doing what I want it to do. Give it a little bit more exposure. And I'm going to give it a little more of a shadow over here. No, I think I need a little more exposure. So I upped it to 50%. You really have to play, see what works for you. But I do have it on its own layer. You can also play with the blending mode. Maybe if I hit highlights, it might give me a little bit more of a shadow. I can do that. And if you click off the shadow layer, you can see that it does add a little something to it. And that's because it's in its own layer, it's working on all of this, the whole file. Another thing I might do, if I don't see the results that I want, is I might, again, create a new layer. I'm going to press the I button, and I'm going to grab, let's see, maybe this blue from his pants. Now a brush, and I want to go at a really low opacity. And I might just brush in, and there you go, brush in a little shadow. Sorry about that, I was choking a little bit, and I guess that's what happens when you do live recordings. So I'm here, and what I'm going to do is I selected a little bit of the dark blue from his pants, and I was using a soft brush. But let's see here, get my brush back, and I can keep adding a little bit of the shadow to his hand, but that might be a little bit too much shadow. So I can either go take a step back, or I can now add a white layer mask to my shadow, and I can paint off some of that shadow and reduce it out. And what I will do here is I'll probably play around with my brush opacity. And by doing so, I can go up here to opacity and use the slider, or even better, I could press the number keys on my keyboard. So on my keypad. So if I press the number 1, I will be at 1% opacity. If I press the 6, I'll be at 60% opacity. Number 1 wasn't 1%. The number 1 was 10% opacity. 6 is 60% opacity. So maybe I want to wipe off, a lot of the shadow. And maybe I don't want to wipe off as much here. Remember, a shadow will always be a little bit darker right where the object is, and then it should spread out and thin out. So we're adding a nice little shadow to matte. If I wiped off a little too much of the shadow, I press the X key, bring my paint back to white, and I can paint a little bit back in. So what I would do from here is just refine his hand, refine the shadows. Then I would look at the rest of the photo and I would work on each box individually, just as I did for Matt. And that's pretty much it. So thank you for joining me today on Facebook at Alissa Beth Photography, or you can reach out to me in the Facebook group at Inside the Box. And I thank you for joining me.